The mountain guides of the German Bundeswehr. They are among the best elite units worldwide for operations in high-altitude terrain. To survive in these regions, they must complete one of the toughest training programs in the Bundeswehr. Temperatures reach -30 degrees Celsius, wind speeds soar to 120 kilometers per hour, and they operate on peaks up to 5,000 meters.
I think they'll be relieved when this is over. I doubt they're really enjoying it here.
In the next 9 months, these men must climb the equivalent altitude of summiting Mount Everest 10 times. Their motto, at any time of year, in any terrain, on rock, ice, and snow, in peace and in action. The guiding principle of their actions is to always be able to stand proud before themselves. However, to be accepted into this elite unit, soldiers must endure a demanding path ahead. Here, the journey for the soldiers begins at the foot of the Alps. In the picturesque town of Mittenwald lies the Karwendel Barracks, home to the Army Mountain Guides. Under the shadow of towering mountains, the elite unit is trained at the Mountain and Winter Warfare School. But first, they must pass a grueling aptitude test. Training Director Lieutenant Colonel Grillhussel welcomes the soldiers.
Herr Oberstleutnant, melde Hörsaal 1 mit 18 Mann angetreten.
Jawohl. Guten Morgen, Hörsaal 1.
Guten Morgen, Herr Oberstleutnant.
Augen gerade aus. Hörsaal 1, rührt euch. Ausbilder, bitte austreten. So, ich darf Sie recht herzlich begrüßen hier zur Überprüfungswoche des HBF-Lehrganges im Mittenwald. Ich wünsche Ihnen viel Erfolg für diese Woche. In dieser Woche wird sich zeigen, ob Sie die nächsten 8 Monate mit uns gemeinsam die Heeresbergführerausbildung durchschreiten werden. Uns gemeinsam meine ich, und dazu möchte ich vorstellen, die Ausbilder. Das sind die Ausbilder Hauptfeldwebel Rauschenberger, Hauptfeldwebel Rieger und Hauptfeldwebel Schubert. Mit mir gemeinsam, wir sind das Kernausbilderteam der Heeresbergführerausbildung.
18 soldiers were nominated by their units, as this is the only way to reach the assessment week. Among them, there is only one female applicant. One of these candidates is 31-year-old Captain Jan Schumacher.
Fulfilling a lifelong dream would come true for me if I passed the mountain guide course. I've been in the Bundeswehr for 10 years now, working alongside Army mountain guides for a while, and I set this goal for myself years ago.
The applicants, however, must bring a great deal with them.
Climbing is a must. Skiing is a must. Physical fitness is a must too. Character suitability is crucial. Walking with crampons. These qualities must be brought along. Here we're training mountain guides, not mountaineers.
Before the first tests begin, Grillhussel explains to the applicants what the coming days will entail.
Damit Sie wissen, was auf Sie zukommt. Also wir werden überprüfen, das ist einmal die Kondition, es ist das Klettern und es ist die Skitechnik. Und die Überprüfung dauert bis Freitag.
Staff Sergeant Slawomir Blos is among them. He is 29 years old, married, and has 2 children.
The mountain guide course isn't, let's say, a coffee drinker's course. You have to perform and prove yourself. Otherwise, anyone could do it.
The soldiers receive their climbing equipment in the so-called high-altitude chamber.
The soldiers are now receiving the gear they need to complete this week's assessment, ensuring they're fully equipped. The requirement is that they complete the assessment using standard issue equipment, meaning no personal carabiners, helmets, harnesses, or anything else. This is because the Bundeswehr often has higher safety standards compared to what is sold as civilian mountaineering equipment. So, in the end, each person receives a helmet, some sling material, a chest harness, and several carabiners to secure themselves.
He, too, aims to make it into the elite unit. Captain Peter Baumert recently became a father and has just returned from his deployment in Afghanistan.
Being accepted into the course and successfully completing it would essentially be the peak of my career and professional journey so far. First of all, just having the opportunity to do this is something special, especially as an officer. It's relatively challenging to get the chance to take a year away. For me, this is truly a dream come true.
The only female applicant is Master Sergeant Suzanne Weigel. She has invested a great deal in preparing for this assessment week.
I'd like to say that I consider myself quite athletic. And the idea of joining this course isn't something new for me. I've had this goal for 3 years now, and with the exception of my overseas deployment, I've been preparing for it for about 2.5 years.
Will this preparation suffice for her to become an Army mountain guide?
It doesn't work if someone joins the Army Mountain Guide course just to earn the badge and says, "Okay, I'll just get through it." That approach is doomed to fail.
I just have to see how it goes. It really is a challenge.
Before heading into the mountains, the soldiers first face less dramatic terrain. In the climbing gym, the instructors want to assess whether the applicants have the technical skills required to handle the real challenges in the mountains. The soldiers prepare for the first rigorous test. The tension is palpable, yet everyone remains optimistic for now.
Well, especially today with so many observers around, you do feel a bit nervous. Here in the gym, it's more of a training environment where you're just learning the technique. Out in unfamiliar terrain, there's a bit more tension. But when you know the route, it should be manageable.
Master Sergeant Jens Wagner from Mittenwald, at 39 years old, is the most experienced applicant. He was a Nordic combined athlete for the German Olympic team.
I've been interested in the Alpine field for a long time. I ski, go ski touring, and rock climb. At some point, you start wanting more. More perfection, more responsibility, or more knowledge. I'm still pretty eager to learn and wanted to combine the pleasant with the useful. And becoming a mountain guide here, it's a real treat. For me, I truly see it as a bonus, something incredible to even be allowed to pursue. You have to put yourself out there in advance just to be considered among the chosen few for this course. I also see it as a reward, a bonus on top, if you're lucky enough to experience the whole thing.
Ich beginne jetzt hier mit einer kurzen Einweisung, so was wir als Standards jetzt für diese Woche haben wollen beim Klettern. Es geht um die Knoten, es geht dann später um Anseilen für morgen mit Doppelseil und wie der Ablauf morgen in den Routen ist.
Everyone listens intently to Instructor Rauschenberger. Here, they learn what to focus on in the coming days. Safety techniques, in particular, are of utmost priority for the core training team. The chief is Lieutenant Colonel Grillhüssel. With his 44 years of experience, he's a seasoned man in both the mountains and the Bundeswehr.
My position exists only once in the entire Bundeswehr. Everyone knows the leaders of the Army Mountain Guide training who have held this role at some point. It's a real challenge, and it especially forces you to stay fit yourself. I could be sitting in an office somewhere in Cologne or Bonn, but I'd much rather be doing this. But that's just how it is. The course participants are in their mid-20s or 30s, and I've got a few more years on me. But I still have them under control.
Ja, dann übergebe ich an den Chef, der sagt noch kurz an, welche Routen jetzt geklettert werden.
I only want you to climb 2 routes. If you look at the wall, it's in the direction I'm pointing. The orange route that goes over the small overhang where Mr. Rauschenberger is standing. Use only the orange holds. And if we move a bit to the left, there's the red route that also goes over the overhang all the way to the top. These are the 2 routes you should climb.
All applicants are divided into pairs. One climbs while the other belays, a fundamental principle, both in the gym and later in the mountains. Master Sergeant Weigel and Master Sergeant Wagner form a team and discuss the route.
First and foremost, we're checking whether everything meets safety standards, particularly with the ropes, for those who want to stay in the course. Secondly, we focus on climbing technique. When you watch, you can see clear differences, whether it's done smoothly or looks more abrupt, relying heavily on strength. And also, here in the gym, we can clearly identify who is more experienced and who still needs practice.
With Weigel, it quickly becomes apparent that she's struggling with the designated routes. The instructors are skeptical. The first failed attempt.
Ein Versuch noch und dann. Ja.
But the next attempt also fails. Weigel has run out of strength and has to give up. Her disappointment is evident.
Yes, these routes. They're set very long here. You often find this in climbing gyms. They're designed based on body length. And if you're shorter, you're already at your maximum reach with everything. Trying to pull something from there is tough. To be honest, I just don't have the strength for it. The men mostly rely on power, and they can muscle their way up. But at some point, my strength just runs out, so I have to try climbing with technique. But that just didn't work in this case.
In the hall, everything is quite similar, but outside in nature, everything is fundamentally different in terms of technique. Some things don't appeal to you right away, perhaps because you've had bad experiences. Other things you like, and that's why it's a subjective matter. What's hard? What's easy? Well, I think it's much more fun outside because the variations are much greater.
Next up is Master Sergeant Bloss.
So the first week is definitely stressful because, well, for example, I worked for a year beforehand to get there. And then, of course, you want to stick with it and keep going.
Bloss approaches his route calmly and with focus. Under the strict gaze of the instructors, he delivers a solid performance. His preparations seem to have paid off. The other applicants still need to prove themselves and show that they can do it too.
It has to be said, of course, that the difficulty levels vary quite a bit from one climbing gym to another. There are gyms that only go up to 7 or 7+, and then I come here. And at the same difficulty level, I'm completely out of my depth. So the standards are quite different.
The routes aren't very long, so you can power through them with strength. But that's doable. These are the kind of routes you tackle regularly in a climbing gym.
The instructors keep a close eye on everyone. If mistakes are noticed here, they can still be corrected. In the mountains, that's not always an option. Grillhusel and his team of instructors seem quite satisfied. Few exceptionally strong candidates, but all are fairly solid.
Overall, I have to say I'm very satisfied. Of course, the excitement and tension are high at the beginning. You've worked towards this for years, and you realize that what you've trained for is paying off,
It's clear that some of the routes are beyond your current level. However, we're still in the gym. This has nothing to do with what we might climb in the Dolomites later on. It's simply meant to give us a first impression of how you move, how you approach challenges, and whether you consciously or unconsciously apply certain climbing techniques. Overall, I can say that the impression we got was actually quite satisfactory.
The next morning, it's finally time to head into the mountains. This is where the aspiring elite soldiers can and want to prove themselves. Under the leadership of instructors Rieger and Rauschenberger, they venture into the nearly 2,000-meter-high mountains of the Karwendel range near Mittenwald. Even the ascent to the testing grounds over rocky and steep terrain is exhausting and has the soldiers breaking a sweat. The weather is still good, but it can change very quickly.
Euer Aufenthaltsbereich mit den Rucksäcken von hier, von mir nach unten. Gell, da sucht sich jeder einen Platz, wo er einen Rucksack vernünftig hinlegen kann. Dann Wechselwäsche an. Sag ich mal, die oberste Schicht ist wieder hier. Entweder Dienststehör Gore-Tex oder Feldhemd, dass wir da ein einheitliches Bild haben. Und dann sammeln wir nochmal hier vorne und machen genau einen Ablauf, wer die ersten Kletterer sind. Und dann habt ihr Zeit, eure Kletterausrüstung herrichten. Zeitansatz jetzt 3 Minuten, dass wir da vorne sammeln mit trockenen Klamotten.
The tension among the soldiers is palpable. Today, each of them must deliver top performance. Instructor Rauschenberger explains the test.
So, here's how we'll proceed. We start at the lower edge here, the mother edge. This is where Staff Sergeant Wagner begins. He's already familiar with it and will be given a stopwatch later to keep track. The goal is to climb up to the second anchor point, which is where the arrow flattens out for the first time. It's a prominent spot to the left near the cluster of mountain pines where the terrain turns brown at the top. In that area, he will find a ring bolt and set up the rappel route with his climbing rope. The goal is for every climber to place a mobile protection device at a spot that makes sense for them or where they feel it's necessary. The next lead climber will then remove it and place their own protection elsewhere. The belayer moves over immediately, and the third person ensures that the second rope is prepared at the base of the wall. Once the first climber has completed their route, we'll have the rappel route set up and one rope ready for continuous lead climbing. You can go get prepared now.
Clouds are rolling in. The candidates will have to climb under challenging conditions today.
Well, here in the Alpine climbing, we're now essentially focusing on ensuring that they can climb safely. It's not just about the athletic aspect, as it was in the gym yesterday, but rather the overall picture. This includes experience, an eye for the terrain, and finding the correct route, not just following the colorful holds anymore.
Yes, for me personally, Alpine climbing is much more enjoyable than indoor climbing. Of course, it's also because of the view. It's a completely different experience.
Ja, ich bin aufgeregt, gerade weil es anfängt zu regnen. Ich glaube, wir müssen los, sonst wird es noch besser. Weil die anderen warten auch. Also dann bis später.
Wagner is a very experienced man in the mountains and fully aware of the dangers that rain can bring in this terrain. With focus and caution, he climbs the steep rock face meter by meter, always secured by his comrade Schumacher. Wagner completes this test with confidence and skill. As he begins to rappel, icy rain sets in. He made it.
You have to make sure to step properly. It works better with climbing shoes. I've had bad experiences with wet rock before. I fell the last time. So water is like a baptism by fire out here. It certainly won't be easy for the next climber.
These are, of course, conditions that make it more challenging when the rock is a bit damp. You first have to check, is the rock solid? Can you get a good grip everywhere? How can I secure the route?
One of the followers is Comrade Schumacher.
I'm climbing this route for the first time today, so I'll have to see how it is. With it being a bit damp and wet, it's obviously a different challenge, but we'll have to see whether it's doable or not.
The icy rain makes it not only slippery, but also very cold for their hands. The candidates are struggling with the challenging conditions at nearly 2,000 meters. Grill Hustle, however, sees it differently.
We're not even in the real mountains yet. That's still to come.
Handschuhe anziehen. Zum Klettern halt da nicht. Ist so.
You just have to push through. There's no other way.
Schumacher is done, but struggles with the weather conditions.
Of course, due to the wetness, it's freezing cold. My hands are really numb. I can barely move them. But otherwise, it was okay.
Not everyone sees it that way.
Where we have to climb, we have to climb. If we're given the task, we need to figure out how to get it done. There are plenty of securing options we can take advantage of, as well as methods to simplify the whole process. The weather is fine. After all, there's no such thing as bad weather, as the saying goes.
Next up is Master Sergeant Weigel. She has an extra source of motivation. Her husband already is an Army mountain guide.
He made it, so I want to make it too. And he wasn't necessarily a better climber, but he has the advantage of being an incredibly good skier.
Weigel is struggling to tackle the steep wall. Will it be enough for admission to the course? The instructors are skeptical. There are no major mistakes, but the skill level isn't very high.
Today's conditions separate the wheat from the chaff, and that's clearly evident. The performances are very mixed. I guess it's that mountain guide weather.
The rope is wet. Nothing holds properly. The holds are partially so slippery up there. There's definitely better weather for climbing, but it's part of the experience.
The other candidates are still waiting for their test. Bloos is up next.
The waiting is quite annoying, especially in this weather. One moment the sun is shining, and then it starts raining again.
At least he's lucky with the weather. For him, it's about proving that he can move safely in Alpine terrain. He doesn't have the climbing experience of Wagner or Baumert, but he's ambitious and has done well so far. The instructors have seen enough. The candidates are left with mixed feelings.
Given the adverse conditions, we've seen it. Wet with relatively cool temperatures. Most of them performed well, but for some, it became quite clear that the challenging circumstances caused significant difficulties.
So the route itself was really nice. I have to say, it was much better than the left route I did at the beginning. Over there, the rope work went smoothly and effortlessly. So, I'm very satisfied. Usually, you're used to climbing in good weather, rarely in the rain, but when it's so cold, it becomes challenging. It was quite exhausting at times because you'd get extremely cold fingers and be exposed to sudden rain showers. In such conditions, you lose grip on your hands and feet. It turned out to be much more demanding than initially expected. I think the results of both tours will be quite interesting today.
The evaluation day for rock climbing is coming to an end. How will the instructors assess their performance? Most are uncertain. They'll find out only at the end of the week. 6 a.m. the next day. The ski evaluation is on today's agenda. By tonight, some soldiers may no longer be in such high spirits.
Zweiter Überprüfungstag, Skifahren. Wir verlegen jetzt rein ins Stubaital, Fahrzeit ca. 60 bis 75 Minuten. Wir werden da einen Gletscher raufgehen, 8 Uhr macht er auf. Okay, gut, aufsitzen.
Today, skiing, the discipline that doesn't suit me so well. But I'm optimistic that everything will work out. The excitement is, of course, still there.
Arrived at the Stubai Glacier, the soldiers are nervous. The conditions are challenging. Before they can begin, all candidates must be equipped with avalanche transceivers, devices that can save their lives in an emergency. There is a risk of avalanches. After a short warm-up phase, instructor Grillhosel explains what he expects from them today.
So we have now arrived at the Stubai Glacier here in Austria. After the entry station, we will begin with the first test run. Generally today, we want to observe variable skiing. We are starting now on the slope. It is moderately steep terrain, a very well-prepared slope. The task will be to make medium and large turns with excellent turn control and the highest turn quality, which means the turns must be carved on edge, as they say in modern terms. I feel a bit more uneasy now than when climbing. While climbing, I still felt very comfortable, but now with skiing, there's an element of uncertainty. Not knowing the requirements makes it a bit queasy in the stomach.
Angekommen, Stubaier Gletscher, eingefahren sind sie. Wir beginnen mit der ersten Prüfungsaufgabe. Mittelsteiles Gelände auf der Piste. Wir wollen sehen, mittlere Radien bis große Radien.
It's time to begin the test. Baumert has to go first. The ski slope downhill is not a problem for him. For Wagner too, one of the best skiers among the candidates, an easy task. With Bloss, you can already see the deficits more clearly. Weigel is having major problems even on easy terrain. Schumacher gives it his all. The evaluations are extremely strict. Any bad grade can mean the end. The instructors are dissatisfied.
There are definitely 2 or 3 people that we absolutely cannot take with us, because it will be a complete hazard when we're skiing in avalanche-prone terrain. That simply will not work out. All right, regarding the first run, it was good that no one got thrown out. That was already positive. What was not so good, and what we should keep an eye on, is the overall picture. It's clear to us that with the shoe and the ski after winter, since we haven't skied for a long time, it's not that easy. But just try to make sure the position is right from the start. That I don't just arrive like that, because that can't work. Accordingly, then the result will match what we've seen. We're now moving over to the terrain, and now we're moving away from this groomed slope, and go into the mountain guide terrain, remote, steep.
The participants must tackle steep slopes with 40-degree inclines while carrying almost 15 kilograms of gear on their backs. These conditions with heavy fresh snow and icy slopes are a challenge even for good skiers.
Yes, I think the difficulty for everyone, including myself, is that when you're skiing privately, you rarely have such a heavy backpack because you have your change of clothes, some food and drinks with you. No one skis with a climbing rope.
The soldiers are having major problems. Hardly anyone can make it down the slope cleanly. Even the most experienced skier, Staff Sergeant Wagner, takes a fall. Will that be enough to be accepted into the course?
Yeah, I think the fall might probably cost me a few points, because I assume that my general approach and what happened after the fall will be evaluated as well. I guess I have entered the slope a bit too motivated due to how well it went earlier. Then it just released the binding because too much force was applied to the ski, and the result was inevitably a fall. But I hope that when you consider the overall performance, there aren't too many point deductions.
Other participants end up falling as well. Weigel is struggling a lot in these conditions. She can barely stay on her feet. Trainer Grillhösel will not like that.
Disappointing. The impression from the first test drive carried through a bit, especially during the challenging off-road drives. The skiing performance shown was already relatively disappointing.
The second descent, the open terrain, was incredibly difficult. My thighs were burning until I couldn't stand anymore. And the snow was also very difficult. The tracks or ruts in the snow made it hard for me to turn the skis properly. So I found it damn hard.
There is still an exam to come, namely the fitness test. But it's certain that not everyone will pass. That's for sure. When skiing, you're inclined to do the nice runs. The hard ones, not so much. And when it comes to the test, I think it's really tough. I think the mood was quite down after the ski task. Now we're heading home. Let's wrap it up for today. We'll continue tomorrow.
A disappointing day for the trainers and applicants. The third and final evaluation day. The instructors give the soldiers no break. The endurance run is up next. With combat boots and 15 kilos of gear, the soldiers have to go up the mountain. Normal hikers need 2.5 hours for this. They don't get this much time from Grillhösel.
Last part of the assessment week, fitness test, up to Damkerhütte, over 700 meters elevation, about 6 kilometers, under 1 hour. That means 59 minutes, 59 seconds. Then they are on track. If they are 1 second too slow, that is to say 60.00, they go home. No matter how the climbing assessment was, no matter how the skiing assessment was, these conditioning abilities and skills are a basic requirement for a future mountain guide.
Ziehen dann die Forststraße entlang Richtung Süden und gehen dann auf den blauen Weg rein, Richtung Furt, untere Kelveralm, Bankerl und dann hoch zur Damkerhütte. Ja, es werden 750 Höhenmeter circa, ja, 6 Kilometer. Und ja, Zeit 1 Stunde ist ja jedem bekannt. Braucht dann keiner rumjammern, warum das jetzt durchgefallen ist, und muss jeder die Frage stellen, warum nicht unter 1 Stunde geblieben ist.
I'm actually looking forward to the endurance run the most, because I can take it the easiest, as that's where my strength lies.
The candidates are tense. Now they are being challenged. Wagner knows what it's about.
I've been training for a long time for this. It's really just about high performance. The most exhausting part was actually preparing for today. I have to stick to the target times. Then I know if it works. Normally, it goes well. It's all about pushing hard and exerting myself for about 45 minutes.
4, 3, 2, 1, up.
A race against the relentlessly ticking clock and, above all, against one's own body. This run pushes all soldiers to their physical limits. Willpower is what counts here. And once again, bad weather. Schumacher is speeding up. The 31-year-old is in top shape. Bloss is tagging along. Wagner is just a few minutes behind.
The clock has been running for exactly 41 minutes now. In the history of this review, the best time is 38 minutes.
Baumert is losing pace. Will his body hold up? He has to give it his all. There isn't much time left. The first soldiers need to take a short breather. But with breaks, 60 minutes won't be possible. Schumacher and Bloss are moving fast. They're almost there. The last few meters are pure determination. Schumacher makes it to the finish line first. Bloss follows directly behind him in second place.
It's always a struggle getting up here, but I think with a good time, around 50 minutes, maybe just under 50, we're doing well.
It's a torment every time. But the timing is right, so I'm satisfied.
Wagner, at 39 years old, is having a good run.
It was better than in training. You can definitely tell that running with more people boosts motivation.
We have now 53 minutes and basically have 7 minutes left for the last ones.
Baumert drags himself to the finish line with his last bit of strength. The 700 meters of elevation gain took everything out of him. Completely exhausted, he made it within the time limit. Passed. That's the most important thing.
Zeit passt. Man muss nicht immer Erster sein.
Weigel showed signs of exhaustion early on. She is completely at her limit. Time is running out for her. Only a few seconds left, and she hasn't passed.
The time is up now. One participant is still missing, and in the end, she already knows herself that it won't be enough to pass the course.
Weigel did not make it. Months of hard work completely in vain. She will not make it into the course, no matter how the remaining assessments went. The comrades sympathize with her.
What happened cannot be said. It's a shame. Because everyone deserves it, but sometimes it's just not enough.
Schneller. Rücken tat weh, sowas kenne ich überhaupt nicht. Also wahrscheinlich der Druck, den man dann sich zusätzlich noch macht. Und außerdem habe ich eben ein bisschen abgehakt nach dem gestrigen Tag vom Skifahren her. Das kommt vielleicht auch noch ein bisschen dazu.
From my point of view, this is the easiest test. This is the basic requirement, the extra effort done during preparation. Everyone can prepare physically to this extent. Almost everyone can complete this route in under 60 minutes. It is a task of perseverance. No peak times, but everyone made it within the limit. Except for one person, everyone's made it. First of all, congratulations to everyone who took on the challenge of the Army Mountain Guide exam. Congratulations to all. Congratulations on the performance that was shown. Also today, with the conclusion of the fitness test. Dry off, drink something, and air out. We are moving out at 10:30.
At the Karwendel Barracks, the evaluation week concludes with the announcement of the grades.
So, die Auswertung der gezeigten Leistungen ist hiermit abgeschlossen. Wir haben die Listen alle fertig gemacht. Jetzt geht es darum, dass ich Ihnen die Leistungen eröffne. Mensch, Frau Weigel.
I think we don't have to talk about your stamina. That is your own fault. You were almost 4 minutes over time. And when it came to climbing, it didn't really work either. There was a 4 once and a 5 another time. Shot grade 5 3 times in skiing. So overall, it wasn't a close decision because you failed at climbing, skiing, and the condition test. So it's not a close decision, but a very clear one.
Aber wir werden es mit Sicherheit auch nicht das zweite Mal versuchen. Also es war einmal und nochmal nicht. Ich weiß auch vom Alter her, ich sage dann irgendwann mal, ist dann mal Schluss.
Unlike Weigel, did Bloss manage to make it?
The condition was good. Excellent. Welcome to the course. But take the skiing notice seriously. And we hope that in the Alpine terrain, where the mountain guide moves, it will work out. Yes, of course, I am primarily relieved that I passed this entrance test. And now I can start the course with a more relaxed mind. Well, we don't need to talk around it for long. A warm welcome to the course. You even got a 1 on a climbing tour. And that from Rauschenberger, that's not so easy. That was just the admission ticket. The course is just starting now, and we have a long way ahead of us. Anything can happen. But for now, the foundation has been laid. We don't need to talk for long, right? A warm welcome to the course. I'm of course satisfied. The fitness test went well after everything, and the evaluation showed that I can stay, so yeah, I'm happy with the outcome. Schumacher, welcome to the course, but your skiing skills. Something needs to happen there, otherwise it can end badly for you.
In the area of skiing, it wasn't quite my best day, but it was still enough, and now I'm happy and glad that the training can really start next week.
Final conclusion. Exhausting week. Exciting week. Not just for the course participants, but also for the core training team. 18 men started. We are now going into the course with 11. It begins next Tuesday, Central European Tour. Let's see how many will remain for the appointment next April. I hope all of them.
The journey through Central Europe begins. In the Franconian Switzerland, one of the most challenging sport climbing areas in Europe, the goal is to get the participants fit. This is how the soldiers' daily life will look for the next 8 months. Cramped quarters, only equipped with the essentials, always ready to march. Life on the edge within 2 square meters. The instructors will push the participants to their limits.
Das wichtigste Prinzip beim Klettern. Wir haben nur eine Toilette hier. Wir haben jeden Morgen Stau auf unserer Toilette. Deswegen bleibt für den einen oder anderen keine Zeit mehr hier, sich zu erleichtern.
The first week of training begins. The instructors will be demanding.
The main goal is to achieve a red point climb of this route. Red point means I can practice beforehand. But I must climb the route without resting or using carabiners or quick draws for movement.
Bloss and his comrades want to show their best and have chosen challenging routes. Under Grillhosel's stern gaze, they can't afford mistakes because every mistake costs a lot of energy. But Baumert is having difficulties. Did he overestimate himself?
Ja, na, dann muss halt jetzt auch mal ein bisschen Entschlusskraft. Das ist für die crazy Ausnahme. Wenn Treacherous passt, reingehe und Gas geben.
Das ist halt schwer einzuschätzen. Wie gesagt, die Arme sind halt gut vorbelastet, ne, durch die letzten Tage. Ich würde es halt gerne noch ein- oder zweimal probieren, aber dann ist quasi der Akku alle.
Wagner is giving it his all, but he's also chosen a very challenging route. He has to cling to the wall with just a few fingers. He can't keep this up for much longer.
I had planned to climb a 7, but it didn't work out at all today because I was a bit exhausted at the beginning and then at the top. As my strength was fading, my technique weakened.
Wagner wanted too much.
A bit disappointed. It wasn't really what we're capable of. Everything has to fit together, head and body. I think tactically, some overreached with the red choice and got in too heavily.
Even the others are not achieving their chosen goal. The trainers will not be satisfied. Schumacher is giving it his all. A climb at the 7th difficulty level demands everything from him. Maximum strain on fingers and arms. The right climbing technique is crucial. A first taste of his temperament. The instructors still have a lot of work ahead of them.
There is too much climbing with the arms, and on such small grip routes in the 7th or 8th grade, that can be fatal. Now they are a bit disappointed, but I think we will attack again tomorrow.
Some people still need to do some work to be able to pass the course in the end.